Welcome to the Mind and Crip Theology podcast, hosted by Miriam Peace and Amy Patton, which come out of the Canadian Journal of Theology, Mental Health, and Disability.
We both live and work on lands that have been homes and remain homes to the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, the Neutral, and the Ojibwe Chippewa peoples and other peoples who have cared for the land.
We are grateful for the opportunity to live and work on this land and are mindful of the need to repair broken covenants.
This podcast is an opportunity to model how faith communities can engage in theological and spiritual conversations around madness and cripness.
If you need a full transcript, you can find our videos on our YouTube channel.
We want to say before we begin that topics and conversations we are raising throughout our time together are often hard.
They are hard for mad and crip people ourselves, and hard for our families and loved ones.
So do what you need to do to take care of yourselves, your bodies, minds, and hearts.
And now, here is our episode. Welcome to this episode of the Mind and Crip Theology podcast. We're delighted to be joined today by two of our contributors, Charles and Carmen. So welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we're so glad that you're both here. And we were just talking before we started recording that we're all sort of in the same area, like geographically. So we're all enjoying this beautiful spring day. Finally, after like the freakish snow we had recently, we can enjoy some beautiful weather. So what we usually do at the start of the podcast is just ask you guys to introduce yourself, if you don't mind, and just let us know your name and your pronouns, sort of like your work or your location where you find yourself right now. And then if you could also give us a visual description of yourself, that would be great, just for our folks who need that. So Carmen, I'm going to ask you to start if you don't mind.
Sure. My name is Carmen Llanos. My pronouns are she, her. I work as a spiritual care practitioner at Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto. And I am also the Minister of Community Development at Birchcliff Bluffs United Church in Scarborough. So I do a lot of work in the hospital with different kind of patients, and I'm focused on one of my areas is mental health and how to, as my article, to provide support for people who are grieving and who are experiencing losses or having spiritual or emotional issues they're dealing with. And my connection to the journal was through a course that I took at Emmanuel College. And I wrote a paper as a project, and then it turned into something bigger and more researchy. So that's when I had Amy and Miriam said, let's publish it. So I was very happy about it. And I wear glasses. I have short, white, let's call them peppery hair. I have a big mouth. And I smile a lot. And I'm wearing right now a top with red, white, and blue stripes.
Thanks so much, Carmen. And we do love it when things turn more researchy. I like that. That's the best thing I've heard all day. So thank you and welcome. And Charles, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. My name is Charles Meeks. My pronouns are he, him. Visually, I'm a white man with a brown beard and circular glasses, and I'm wearing headphones, and I'm wearing a checkered shirt that's kind of greenish and salmonish in color. I don't really know what colors these are, but yeah. So I do a lot of things, I guess. My sort of like day job is I work for the Anglican Diocese of Niagara, based here in Hamilton, Ontario. And I do a couple things at the moment. I'm the editor of the diocesan newspaper, but I'm primarily the coordinator for the Niagara School for Missional Leadership, which is an initiative started by our bishop, Bishop Susan Bell. And we're just sort of exploring how to share knowledge about missional approaches to life, to the church in this diocese. So I do a lot of the nuts and bolts coordinating of that. I also teach as an adjunct for several institutions. Most recently for Wycliffe College, where I did my PhD, and I think and write and study sort of vaguely theological things, but but a lot of my work has sort of been on connecting early church theology to modern theology, particularly around the sacraments. And I've most recently started thinking a lot more about the role of mental health and how that functions, as we understand ourselves as complicated humans. And so my first piece is sort of a personal reflection on my own journey through that, and I'm working on something further about the sacraments and mental health. But my brother is a registered psychotherapist, so I've sort of been marinating in this stuff secondhand, I guess, for quite a while. But it's good to be here and talk about this stuff, and I'm excited about connecting with folks who have also been thinking about these things.
Well, welcome to you both. Thank you so much.
We'll jump into our first question, which is for both of you. You speak about the significance of frustration and anger in your work. We wondered if you might share about how you experience your faith helping or hurting, how you express these emotions. And we wondered if, Charles, you might begin.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, frustration and anger are two of those emotions that I think get really sidelined from Christian experience. I mean, and really sort of life experience in general. Certain portions of the human population are told that anger and frustration are sort of inappropriate with their presentation of gender and self and identity. And and I don't think Christianity has helped that very much at all. I think I've been privileged as a man to be allowed to be angry in certain ways, and I think in a lot of ways that's it's actually kind of championed that idea of righteous anger. And I think the problem, though, in my own experience, is that anger and frustration are usually seen as expressions of power. And for me, I have felt them most deeply when I have felt the least powerful, like I have the least control over what's happening in my life, whether it's external circumstances or it's sort of the way I'm processing what's happening around me and trying to handle emotions. And I usually, anger and frustration ends up as the first outburst before I've had proper time to process emotion. And which means that I'm not thinking spiritually at all sometimes when I'm angry. So it's been a journey for a really long time to think through actually how learning how to process my emotions relates to my understanding of, what is the Spirit doing right now. And a lot of time I think most recently I've been thinking about how the Spirit kind of baptizes those emotions when I can reflect honestly and realize that it's not just self-righteousness, it's not just egoism for why I'm angry. I sound like this perhaps overly reflective pious monk, but that's not me at all. This is just stuff I've been thinking through. And yeah, so I guess the simple answer then, after all that caveat work, is that my spirituality has helped me be okay with my anger as a way of expressing my true inner feelings. But it's also helped me not let that anger control the way I see myself or the way I see whatever situation. Yeah, I guess that's what I would say there.
Thank you, Charles, for sharing the war of anger. And Carmen?
Yes, I'm with Charles 100% about anger. Like for me, I've always been told, that anger is not a good feeling. It's a bad thing. And in my faith tradition, it was the opposite to love. And it was the opposite to the Christian people should do. But Jesus got angry. And I'm like, I think that we should think about that in my tradition, Jesus got angry. So why he was modeling for us that anger is okay. And for me, it's what do we do with anger is the problem. So I think that anger is a healthy feeling. And when I deal with people that blame themselves or feel guilty because they are experiencing anger, very understandably, they're angry because a lot of people that I encounter are really experiencing a lot of challenges in their lives. So when they think this is not Christian, or this goes against, my beliefs. And I said, well, God gave you feelings, gave you all of them. So if it's okay to be happy, it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to be angry. And, it's what we do with that anger. So for me, anger is like a red light, a blinking thing, wow, a siren that tells me there's something wrong. So what is wrong? And it's for me an opportunity to address whatever is happening. So why I'm angry? Did something offended me? Did I say something that was unjust? What triggered this anger? And if somebody says to me something and I reply back, then it's maybe not the way that I would address it, but in a different way. So I don't know if I explain myself, but for me, anger is a good thing. It's a warning sign that there's something happening that we need to address. And the same way but we don't, when we're happy, we're not, oh, I'm so happy. Why am I so happy? Oh, is this good to be happy? Right? But I think that anger, it's not like extreme anger, right? It's like feeling that I am feeling angry. Why is this happening? What should I do about it? So yeah. And it comes always from frustration about circumstances in people's lives or things that, all that stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Carmen. That's really helpful. And I know we're going to come back to talk a little bit about your swearing circle project that you submitted to the journal and was published. But I was just thinking while you were talking how, you know, a lot of people are told they need to go to anger management, you know, anger management therapy or whatever. And we don't really have anger, like teaching people how to be angry. You know, we don't have that kind of thing happening. It's like, I know growing up in the sort of Christian circles I grew up in, it was like, yeah, you were not supposed to be angry. You're just supposed to be like this, like flat line all the time, but also happy. You know, like when you go to youth group retreats and stuff, you're supposed to be like the most happy and stuff. Anyway, yeah. So, but we'll come back to talk about Carmen's swearing circles in a bit. So thanks both for those insights. And so, Charles, I'm going to ask you a question now about your piece that you submitted to the journal. And so yours, like you said, it was a very personal, reflective piece, and about your journey with taking Wellbutrin, and your mother's journey as well. And so for those who haven't had a chance to take a peek at our journal yet, what we ask all of our authors to do is they submit something, they write something, and then they also put an author's note in, which gives a little bit of a like pulling back the curtain, kind of like little behind the scene peek, something they want our readers to know about the piece. And so Charles, in your author's note, you talk about how you've stopped taking the Wellbutrin, but that depression is still around you, and you call it hanging out of your back pocket. And I wanted to know, Miriam and I were pondering when we were making up questions to ask you both, have you completely closed the door to going back on these medications in the future? And why or why not?
Yeah, I have definitely not closed the door. I think it's, for me, yeah, one of the reasons Wellbutrin was such a godsend for me was because I think in my own ability to sort of cope and to process traumatic things kind of happening around me, you know, Wellbutrin took the edge off, which is a phrase I don't know. I try not to use carelessly, because I think I think, yeah, that can be applied to many substances. But for me, truly, that's sort of what it was about. When I described my ability to think and process, and especially, you know, dealing with some traumatic things right in the middle of my PhD, which is already stressful enough, right? Yeah, Wellbutrin was sort of a first step in seeing, like, okay, can we clear the fog? Can we, you know, can I give myself more of a leg up for processing what's happening and thinking critically and identifying emotional responses to things? So one of the reasons I stopped taking Wellbutrin is because my life circumstances changed. I got out of a very unhealthy relationship. I moved to Canada to finish my program. And after some time in readjusting to new environments, I realized, like, actually, you know, now that many of the external circumstances have changed, that's been sort of enough of a help. I want to be clear. It's not because I view medication as like a crutch that should be gotten rid of as soon as possible or anything like that. I think that's the tradition I was raised in and steeped in. Was that medication was bad. That's what happened to people who couldn't cut it in reality, right? Even though I discovered later that my own mother had been taking antidepressants for so long, and I never knew. And then even, you know, when she was on her deathbed, she was still being prescribed them. So I call depression hanging out of my back pocket as sort of a way of acknowledging that it is something that sticks with you. It's not just being sad, right? And you know, all of us in this Zoom room know that that's not what depression is. But most people, especially in Christian circles, don't fully understand it. And I think we're also dealing with a real divide in a population where, you know, the economy is failing and global warming is going to destroy the planet, and there's a lot of bad stuff happening, and people of older generations tend to generalize and say, well, they're just sad because their avocado toast is more expensive, you know. And but I think things are starting to turn, and we're starting to realize that actually you know, it's a combination of our own physical chemistry and the circumstances around us that you know, who to thunk that it's complicated, you know. You can't just make yourself be happy in the same way that you can't just get a job and have that solve your problems, you know. So it's I think of medication like Wellbutrin as you know, going forward as like another resource in my toolbox, and I wish that was the way more people sort of thought about medication in particular, as it's another resource in the same way that we look at, like, I don't know, new developments in like running shoe technology as a resource, or new developments in meditation techniques as ways to be more grounded and find wellness. You know, medication functions in the same way for us, as ways that we're all sort of together as humans trying to be better, more full versions of ourselves. So yeah.
I just want to say something. Like, I agree with you with the stigmatization of medication for mental health, because, you know, people who take a baby aspirin every day for their heart condition, they share that. People who take medication for other illnesses, other issues, other struggles, they are not ashamed of talking about that, and they don't think it's a bad thing. But there's all that stigma about medication in the mental health area. Yes,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we're grateful for authors in this issue who have come out and spoken about their experience with medication to kind of speak without shame about taking it. Thank you, Charles. And Carmen, we wondered if you could tell us about the current climate in the hospital with the pandemic continuing, even though it's getting better, it's not over. And how have the staff been telling you that they are feeling? How would your square and circles be of help to them?
okay. The current climate, don't tell anybody else, but it's a secret. It's not different from what it was a year ago, 2 years ago, when the pandemic started. Unfortunately, when we feel that, oh, this is over, then it comes back to bite us in the butt. So unfortunately, the climate, it's also about frustration, anger. So it's a recurrent theme. It's all over Canada. The healthcare providers are exhausted, and you know, staff feel tired, overworked, angry, frustrated, and unfortunate. Also, they feel helpless and hopeless, and it's like there's nothing that regular people can do to change the system, because, you know, it's a something that is happening all over Canada and all over the world. The pandemic has affected everybody, especially in the healthcare system. So from the beginning, where there was no PPE available and countries were struggling to get stuff for their own people, to now having the vaccines, okay, but then still that struggle about, you know, mutations and all that, and when the waves hit. And I think that also frustration, you know, for how things are being handled, and seeing that, you know, at least we are still wearing masks in hospitals, but knowing that if the next wave is here, why we are not why other people are not doing something to keep everybody safe, because it's not only about working in healthcare, but our families. We want our friends. We want, you know, everybody to be safe. And if what some people don't understand is that having, you know, those waves, what it makes is continues to add more pressure, and staff also get sick, and then there's less people to take care of an increasing number of patients that need more care, and it's allowing other people who needed care not being able to come to the hospital to get the care they needed. So some people are coming even sicker than they would if they had not been so many restrictions because of COVID. So I think that the swearing circles will help people to vent, and because we're also in some cultures, we deal with anger the same way with swearing. So swearing is bad, and you know, it's like it's not okay. And I've had so many times, and either in ministry at the church or at the hospital, when people are like very prudent, and people that usually they express themselves by swearing, they use these euphemisms like crap or things like that. And they're like, oh, sorry. I'm like, it's okay. You know, I'm a human being. Like, I don't tell everybody that I swear too, but those people that know me know that I do. And I'm going to out a lot of my colleagues in the United Church and in spiritual care. I think that most of us swear a lot. So I think it's helpful to express feelings, not to use them to go against people, to use them as, you know, insulting people, but because the swear words are stored in a different place than our regular words, and they are used to express emotions. So we are expressing our emotions. There's nothing that compares when something goes bad than a big, oh, fuck, right? If I say, oh, crap, it's not the same. I'm thinking about the word and I'm accessing the regular word, but, you know, shit, like, come on. So it comes from the emotional part of me. It's allowing me to express, to vent. If I say, oh, poop, like, what's that? Like, that doesn't help. That's just my front lobe choosing the right word. So it helps. So yeah, I think that mostly the swearing circles is a way for people to vent. And it can be with swearing words or whatever words for them are helpful to express their feelings of anger. Because we go easily and fast to the sadness. So I feel sad about this, and we are open about it. Yeah, I felt we are a lot of words that can explain how upset, how sad, how teary we were. But when we are angry, it's like we have more difficult expressing our anger. And then if you add the swearing words, then it's like a double whammy. So
Thank you, Carmen. And then that's the first time read on the box was more on the podcast, so that's fucking amazing. So
Now we
thank
get to
you.
we get to like tick that little box on YouTube that's like, does this contain explicit content? And we can finally
Sorry, but
click it.
I had
Thank
to.
you,
I was
Carmen.
debating. I'm like, should I not? But this is about swearing circles, so it is
So
what it
glad.
is. Sorry if you have to tick the box or if
No,
it's
No, it will give me great glee.
You can't run
Tick
ads
the
on it
box.
now. That's the only thing.
Yeah, that's okay. Oh. Carmen, I wanted to ask you just as a follow-up. So I know you and I were talking kind of offline about the idea of like actually implementing some of your swearing circles ideas in the hospital. How's that been going?
So I have been in conversations with a couple of people. I know someone from a research perspective that has asked me if we would like to discuss how to do a trial. So she's going through the paper right now, and she thought that there were a lot of good things in there, and so we are going to have some conversations next week about it and see if there's any way that we can take that to practice. I've also talked to someone in the neuroscience, neuromarketing. They do all these things that put things in your brain from a university in Spain. And it's like very fascinating, and they do a lot of neuro stuff. I don't really understand what it is, but they put you these things in your head, and then they can analyze the areas of your brain that are active, and they do that with oxygen. It's not electrical. I don't know. So they're also interested in see how, if we could measure something, if there's something that we could do. But at this point, we have there's still there in the air, but there's some interest about it, and I'm like, oh, that's fucking good. So
yeah, so good.
I never thought that this would go anywhere. It might go somewhere. So yeah, I'm happy about it.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's
I'll keep
very
you
encouraging
posted.
to hear.
I'll share whatever we do with them, so we can share them with people here.
Very cool. Thank you. So we, at this point in the podcast, is usually like our favorite part because we get to ask you both to talk to each other about each other's work. So we just wanted to see if there's any questions you had for one another, or any like ideas that you wanted to share about each other's pieces. So maybe Charles, I'll ask you to begin. Is there anything that any questions you want to raise for Carmen, or anything you want to mention?
Well, first, I mean, yeah, it's so fascinating. I love this, and I hope it really does take off. Yeah, I agree with you. It seems like such a simple thing, and yet the fact that we have not allowed space for swearing circles and things like this is just kind of baffling. But I love the way through this study that you read the scriptural text, and it's sort of rooting human identity, and like you almost have to say like, look, see, this stuff is in the Bible too, as a way to kind of like connect with the folks that need to be convinced of this most. And I wanted to ask, especially because you bring up the Book of Lamentations, and I've recently been connecting, especially with the Psalms, in thinking through sort of the fullness of human emotion that is really embraced in Scripture. So this isn't a very good question, I'm sorry, but I just wonder if there's anything that you wanted to talk more about your connection with lament and anger and expressions of just like raw human emotion in the biblical text that you didn't have room to put in this paper.
Well, I think that there's a lot that can be said about Lamentations, and for me, what I enjoy the most when I talk about it or when I read about it is us communicating with God directly. That's a dialogue with God. This is not, oh, God is this or God is that. It's like, God, listen to me. I'm going through this. Why I'm going through this? Why are you putting me through this? So that deep emotional connection to God, as God is listening to us, is acknowledging that God listens to us and that God suffers with us. And for me, suffering God, it's one of the most incredible, powerful signs of grace. A God that suffers with us and loves us so much that we can say, what the fuck, God? Like I don't even have words. If I didn't use words, I don't know how to express this right now, right? It's like, I'm suffering, I'm going through all of this, and come on, God, right? Come on. And now you're listening, do something, help me understand, or make me understand, or take things in a different way. I'm struggling, and I'm a child of yours. So that lament and that cry to God for help, for support, to at least knowing that God is listening and that God is suffering with you. And I think that is and being in scripture, being out there for us to understand that it is okay to be mad at God, to be upset with God. It's a human reaction, it's a human emotion. And God gave us all those feelings. And that's what I know now.
Thank you. Yeah, that's beautifully said, I think. Yeah. I one of the earliest commentaries that I've read on Job, which was written in the sort of like late 4th century, it's really stuck out to me because the commentator says that the reason Job was able to meet God face to face at the end was not because he did all the virtuous things and was sort of like granted an audience as a reward, but it was because Job was willing to cry out to God honestly. And I just love that. The irony is that this commentary comes from a figure that was later condemned as a heretic, but I think they read the text better than a lot of the a lot of the Orthodox commentaries on Job.
Makes sense.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Wow. So I would like to mention, Charles, that when I read what you wrote, first of all, I thank you for your openness and vulnerability. And I see a lot of grief. There's so much grief on your paper and your writing, and the way that you describe the events in your life and how they have affected you and how they have impacted you. I think that it's beautiful. And the way you wrote it, the way you addressed things, I find that like it's written from the heart. And I appreciate your honesty and being sincere and sharing your feelings about the things that have happened in your life.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird feeling to be honest when I'm used to putting academic distance between myself and whatever I write and publish. So it's it's a bit bizarre, but I think what you've said about grief is you've hit the nail on the head there. Like it's a lot about carrying grief, processing loss and situations throughout my life. And I mean, that's sort of what we're all doing in certain ways, is just learning how to do that. And one of these days I want to write something on this sort of lost opportunity that the church has been given through the pandemic to grieve corporately. Yeah, I'm afraid I'll put too much of myself into it. I don't know. Still thinking about that. But thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
Just a follow-up, how did it feel not having the academic distance? How did that feel, and what did it then publishing this?
It felt very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I've reached a point in my life, I'm nearly 40 now, and I've spent my life weaving in and out of different ecclesial circles and academic circles, but there's so little honesty about us as human beings in the church and in seminaries and things. And I was really struck. One of my thesis advisors was Ephraim Radner, and in the intro to one of his newest books, he talks about his own battle with suicide in his family and his own experience. And I just sort of realized, like, I don't want to wait until I'm at his point in his academic career, to be honest. That's I respect his choice. But I feel like there's not enough time now for folks like us. Like, why are so many academics in particular this sort who get who are depressed and who are trying to, so many of us are just trying to process our own childhoods and in some way, right? And some of us do it theologically, some of us do it through spiritual care and therapy and other realms, but we're all very very hurt and broken people who hurt and break other people. And yeah, so I guess I'm just putting myself out there in a certain way, and I'm happy to have the mouthpiece, and I'm privileged to have that, and I hope other people feel the same, that they could be honest and open about that stuff. Yeah.
We are so grateful for both of your honesty about protection and anger and coping. It's important. And related to that, we wondered about how you take care of yourself during this work. And maybe Carmen will begin with you.
Okay, so I use humor to care for my soul. So I have different ways that I care for myself and my soul, my mind, and body, but I'm not going to the gym right now, but I should. That's another issue. So I use humor. I like a good laugh. I think laughter is one of the best medicines, and it's free. So also for me, separating work with life outside of work, my personal life, spending time with my 3 dogs, my Yorkies, spending time with my wife, not so much seeing people lately because of COVID, but having friends, enjoying, focusing on what I usually tell people, like taking one day at a time. So it's sometimes easier to say than to do it. It's easier said than done, but I try that. So I try to focusing on the here and now and say, okay, what can I do now that can help me deal with a stressful situation, or something that I might need to heal from or to work with. And music also helps me. So on my way home, I usually play music that I like and I sing, and people look at me because I'm like moving and jumping and singing, and that also gives me even more pleasure. So yeah, I think music, family, personal life, and laughter, and also talking to God about and praying for people. So asking God to continue to support me and to bless me as other people bless me and as I bless others. So talking to God is also a good way for me. And sometimes, yeah, get angry and say to God, why is this happening to this person? So yeah.
Yeah, soul care. Oof. I should probably do more of that. No, I'm also a candidate for ordination in the Diocese of Niagara here. So I get asked this question a lot, and I I think part of it is learning. I'm not saying this first because I'm more pious. I'm just saying it because I'm just thinking about it. But learning how to pray again. I think every year I need to relearn how to pray, and currently I'm relearning how to pray based on inviting Christ to minister through me, rather than me trying to be the number one in my life, and that's been very difficult. I think the other thing, the other bit of soul care is thanks to my therapist, learning how to be gentle to myself when I think through situations and I think through how I process them and respond to them. And the complex emotions I have about a lot of stuff. I think it's, maybe it sounds too nebulous to some folks, maybe who are going to be listening or watching this, but treating myself more gently means actually just allowing myself this space to be messy with life, and to realize that actually I don't want to throw around $100 words, but like my own Christology is being reshaped through my understanding of Christ's humanity. And Carmen, so this is why so much of what you're saying has been resonating with me, because thinking through just the absolute nonsense that Jesus faced as a human being, and the grief that he experienced when Lazarus dies, and when he's like at Gethsemane, and when he's betrayed, and then the times where he's rejoicing like a mad person, quote unquote, the way the Pharisees saw him. I just think like, life is so big and complex, and I need to allow myself to be sloppy and human like that. And academics are so not good at that, and especially academics training to be ordained, but that's not what human life is like. And so this is the season I'm in, to use that terrible cliche that Christians love, but it's just the phase of life right now. It's just learning how to be okay with myself. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Charles. It sounds like a lifelong journey that all of us are on. I think trying to accept ourselves and let other people see our mess. So, and I'm saying that as a person whose house is very dirty right now. So, and I didn't use the blurring filter behind us. Anyway, okay. So we're aware of time. We just wanted to see if either of you had any sort of last minute thoughts that you wanted to share with our listeners before we go. Carmen, is there anything?
No, that I can think of.
Okay, well,
I
we
think that
we wish
I
you.
added enough swearing words and you have to tick the box. So
I
I'm
know.
good
true.
with that.
Well, we wish you the best with the swearing circles. I hope that we can follow up with you maybe later this year, and you can let us know how things are going. So
Sure,
thank
yes,
you.
thank you.
Yeah, and Charles, is there anything? Oh, I think you're muted. There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry, could you say it again? I think you were muted there.
Oh, sorry. I was just yeah, I think I've said enough.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for this time to chat with all of you, and yeah, I think this is awesome.
Okay, and we hope to follow up with you again too. I hope that both of you will write for the journal again. And well, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.